Welcome to the GSMC Business News Podcast, the show dedicated to keeping you up to date on all things concerning business, technology, and the stock market. Get a head start on the day as we keep you updated on the latest goings-on Wall Street, money, jobs, and technology. If you're looking for a podcast to keep you informed and ahead of the game in business, the GSMC Business News Podcast has you covered.
I am your host, Ben Felix. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about Disney CEO Bob Iger's sudden resignation, Prageru's legal battles with YouTube, Clearview AI's database gets hacked, Airbnb's new plan to stop people from throwing parties at host homes, how screenshots make it nearly impossible to maintain privacy now, and we'll finish off by talking about how an Apple iPhone or laptop could ruin movies, TV as we know it. Now, like I said, we're going to start off by talking about the sudden news of Disney CEO Bob Iger resigning. The news dropped on February 25th, and like I said, it came as a surprise to many people. There had been speculation over the past couple of years that Iger was getting close to retiring, but when the news dropped a couple of days ago, it still came out as a surprise to many. In fact, the news was so shocking that Disney's shares dropped more than 6% after Iger's departure was announced. Now, Bob Chapek has been named the new chief executive officer. Before this promotion, Chapek served as chairman of Disney Parks, Experiences, and Products. During his 15-year stint as Disney's CEO, Iger secured the $7.4 billion acquisition of Pixar from Apple CEO Steve Jobs in 2006, as well as the $4 billion acquisition of Marvel in 2009, and the $4 billion purchase of Star Wars studio Lucasfilm in 2012. Iger was named Time's Business Person of the Year for 2019. Iger's time as CEO will forever be marked by the launching of streaming service Disney Plus in his last year leading Disney. The launch was a huge endeavor for Disney and involved collaboration all across every platform. And one of the biggest parts of the launch was Disney working to acquire Fox in a $71.3 billion takeover of all of like a good amount of Fox assets. And in less than 3 months, Disney Plus signed up 28.6 million subscribers, an unprecedented number, such a short period of time. I believe Disney Plus launched in November of 2019. And so, yeah, in such a short period of time, they were able to rack up 28.6 million subscribers, which is a ridiculous amount of numbers. And one media analyst called it one of the greatest product launches of all time. Now, in a press release from Disney, Bob said, with the successful launch of Disney's direct-to-consumer businesses and the integration of 21st Century Fox well underway, I believe this is the optimal time to transition to a new CEO, Mr. Iger said. I have the utmost confidence in Bob and look forward to working closely with him over the next 22 months as he assumes this new role and delves deeper into Disney's multifaceted global business and operations while continue to focus on the company's creative endeavors. Now, like I said, it came as a surprise to many people, but in that statement right there, one of the good things to know is Bob Iger, he's resigning from role as CEO, but he's still going to be there with the company, and he won't officially be done till 2021, I believe. And so it's still good that he's going to be there helping Bob Chapek kind of, just get him acclimated to the role, acclimated to, everything that's going on. And especially, with this new big project they have with the streaming service, that's kind of Disney's new baby right now. That's everything is riding on Disney Plus, and they're just trying to feed that with original content and continuing to grow that out as, they're the biggest battle with Netflix right now, and they're giving Netflix a run for its money, pulling all their content from Netflix. And So it's going to be real interesting to see how it plays out. I think it's Disney at the end of the day. Disney knows how to do these things right. And even though it came as a surprise, I think nonetheless, it's still good to know that Bob Iger will be there to help Bob Chapek during the transition. And Iger goes on to say, with those chess pieces now in play, getting everything right creatively will be his number one goal. I could not do that if I were running the company on a day-to-day basis. Iger said during a Tuesday conference call about the succession, it just obviously takes that much time and it's so much complex. And so the goal was for me to turn over the day-to-day management of the company to Bob Chapek with direct authority over all of our businesses and basically all elements of the company, and free me up just to basically focus on the creative side. It was really that simple. And at the same time, the choice of Chapek as CEO surprised some industry. Was not a surprise to many people, but it did surprise some people that, just kind of keep up with the industry. Streaming is one area of the business where Chapek has little experience, and many saw the success of Disney Plus launch as setting up Kevin Mayer, who was the executive in charge of streaming, as the person to take over for Bob Iger. And so when they announced Bob Chapek, for the most part, many people were good with it, but there were some that had their little less speculations and were wondering if this was the right transition. But nonetheless, Bob Iger's going to be there to help him out along the way. And even though Chapek may not be the technology guy when we look, at his experience, nonetheless, I think it'll be, if he's been there with that company, I think he's been with the company for 27 years. If he's been with them for that long, he's going to be he knows enough, and with the guidance of Bob Iger, he's going to be able to do a good enough job to be able to pick up from where Bob left off and kind of, keep Disney on this ever so climb to the top of just everything. And this news caught my eye because usually you hear these major companies, when CEOs quit, retire, or whatever it may be, you hear the news and kind of keep it moving. But Disney has been a huge part of my life, obviously, for the past 15 years, I love everything that Disney does between the parks and, their acquisition, everything Bob Iger did, which it really is such an insane resume when you look at it. Acquiring Pixar, acquiring Marvel, acquiring Lucasfilm, and then launching Disney Plus. Pixar has rarely misses with its movies, and that was just one acquisition that made so much sense because Pixar and Disney were partnering so much on so many projects already. And then the $4 billion acquisition of Marvel in 2009. Marvel would not be where it was if Disney hadn't acquired it. And I think even if, a different company had ended up acquiring Marvel, I don't think they would have had so much success as, when they got acquired by Disney. And when we just look at last year, it really has come full circle for him with, acquiring Marvel in 2009 and then 2019 ending the year off with one of the biggest films of all time with Avengers Endgame, and just the numbers that movie did, and seeing how, 10 years of variety of movies, different characters all came together to, encompass in this one final movie. And Disney and Marvel have done it so well where, they've kind of set the pace for what's next in the next decade and working towards the transition with that. And Bob Iger played a big part in all that. So that's been really cool. And then, I'm not as huge into Star Wars as, some other people are, but even that acquisition has been huge because we just see it with the movies and also how the Star Wars theme has been, getting incorporated into some of the parks. I know they just build a huge section of a Star Wars village in Disneyland, and I was out I was out in California a couple years ago and seeing that while it was still being built out, and it looked ridiculous. I can't wait to go back out that way and get to check it out. Like I said, I'm not a huge Star Wars guy, but just that's one of those things they do so well with Star Wars. When, they got a project with it, they go all out. And I still watch the movies and all because it's just such a huge cultural phenomenon. And, it's one of those things where you might not follow it that well, but everyone keeps up with it. So it'll be interesting to see how the next year or so works out for Disney with this new transition to a new CEO. But nonetheless, I think they'll do it right. It's Disney. It's just that shock of, it was a very sudden news, but I don't blame him. Iger's this is the way to do it, going out on top. And after such a huge, successful 15 years as a CEO, it's cool to, see him have this transition, be able to, enjoy the rest of his life. He's had a heck of a resume right there, and that's one will definitely be remembered. And he's one of those names, like I said, I don't keep up with many of the CEOs of some of these big companies and stuff, but he's like there with the Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates, those names that, will live it throughout forever, and names that will definitely hold on to. And when we look at back at pivotal moments, like, where were you when this happened, with just certain projects, especially Disney Plus. Disney Plus has just starting to find its feet, and the next few years, even this year alone, with all the different products they're launching, and as Disney starts getting on the forefront of more of these technologies that is paving the way for the future, it'll be cool to see how they keep growing on that. So we're going to take a short break, and we come back, we're going to be talking about how Prageru just lost a huge court battle, second one against YouTube. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
Are you looking for a podcast that gives you all of the latest news from the world of finance? Then check out the GSMC Financial News Podcast. We'll delve into the ups and downs of the stock market, changes in the economy, and news from the world of real estate and technology. From breaking news on the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, or the overseas market, to updates on the bond market, if there's money to be made, we'll cover it on the GSMC Financial News Podcast.
And we are back. Before the break, we were talking about Bob Iger, Disney CEO, resigning, and kind of what that means for the company now, and with Bob Chapek taking over, what the next year or so will look like for Disney, and hopefully it's a smooth transition. Now, this segment, we're going to be talking about U.S. court ruling that went against. It was Prageru versus YouTube. Now, Prageru is this nonprofit that has tons of videos on YouTube, and the channel is part of a nonprofit founded by conservative radio host Dennis Prager, and the channel has nearly 2.5 million subscribers, but it has attracted significant criticism for its videos, including ones of harnessing masculine aggression and the nature of Islam. So this is one of those super right-wing, conservative channels. And basically the case is YouTube had removed advertising from dozens of videos that present right-wing views, setting some of them to restrict mode for adult viewing. And Prageru saw this as a violation of their First Amendment, so they try to sue YouTube a couple times, and so this is the second time they try to sue them, and the U.S. Court of, I think it was the 9th District Court of Appeals, ruled that YouTube is not a public forum that must guarantee users' rights to free speech. And this is something a lot of companies have been dealing with, especially recently with our current political climate. We've been seeing situations with Facebook and also Twitter, and it's that part of, there's that fine line between freedom of speech and also when too far is too far, and trying to regulate that. And, at the end of the day, as the courts ruled that, despite YouTube and, Twitter having these platforms where it's very like a public forum where you can post stuff on it, and you got a bunch of many different, people contributing to it, or it feels very public. At the end of the day, YouTube is still a private owned company, and so your idea of having, freedom of speech, public speech, being able to say whatever you want on their platform doesn't go. The Constitution prohibits Congress or the states from abridging the freedom of speech. The Supreme Court had reiterated last year, and the First Amendment simply does not apply to private entities, even if they create an open forum for varying viewpoints. Prageru has spent more than 2 years hounding YouTube in court, and their lawyers insist that Prageru has a constitutional right to host his videos on the platform and profit for them. But nonetheless, the court said, despite YouTube's ubiquity and its role as a public-facing platform, it remains a private forum, not a public forum. And I think that's a very important ruling, and it's the right ruling for one, because these companies just keep having that fine line of playing between, what do we allow and what do we not allow. And when it comes to these courts having intervened, the courts make it easier, one, for the companies to, back up on like, hey, this is why we're taking your videos down. And it's cool because I think it can't be free for all. Just post whatever you want, post whatever hateful rhetoric you want to throw out there, spew out there, because people are gullible. People are gullible. People will believe whatever, false accusations some of these, far right, conservative, and even on the other side, some, whatever crap is being spewed out there. And so there does need to be regulation of this content by these companies. But at the same time, we're playing that fine line of like, okay, what gets regulated by what? And, we're seeing recently, Facebook is dealing with kind of this. They have a content moderation system that they've recently introduced where an independent oversight board will have the power to overrule the company's decisions. So this content moderation project, it'll be led by British human rights expert Thomas Hughes, who said the board is committed to protecting free expression and human rights. Like I said, I think the censorship is necessary, but where it gets murky is when you start, trying to figure out what to censor and what to not. And especially like right now, a lot of the stuff that's being censored is coming from that far right-wing conservative side, and it can feel like in a weird way that, those people feel like their content is being, attacked. They're constantly being, all the focus is on them. But in the same time, it's like, yeah, all the focus is being focused on you because you're the one that's spewing, hateful rhetoric. You're the one that's spewing all these lies out into the community. And so that's why even despite you feeling like you're being attacked, It's all everything you've brought on yourself. And, just because you can go out there and say it and, try to claim it's freedom of speech, just as much people have the right to, protest and argue against it. And those companies, not being public entities, they're private owned. They, at the end of the day, get to decide, like, hey, do we want this on our platform and not? And Prageru's Craig Straziri said in a press release, of course, this ruling is disappointing, but we won't stop fighting and spreading public awareness of big tech censorship of conservative ideas. It's going to be an ongoing battle, and, especially 2020 with the big presidential election coming towards the end of the year. It'll be interesting just to see how it keeps playing out, because, the closer we get to it, the more these far right conservatives keep spilling out all these ridiculous different claims. Recently I saw something where, they use an audio clip from a book, it was an audio book reading, whatever you would call it, of Obama talking about a certain situation that they used it in an ad against Joe Biden, and the context of the clip was totally used out of the clip was used totally out of context and just thrown in there to make it seem like Obama was saying something bad against Joe Biden, but when that was not the case. And so, little stuff like this, and then also just, spewing racist, disgusting talk towards, Mexicans, minorities, black communities, all these, it's got to be regulated. It's got to be regulated, and, these far right conservatives might not like it, but oh well, something's got to be done, because all that stuff you're doing is not helping, bring people together. It's hateful rhetoric. That's what it is. And I'm glad, the Ninth Court ruled this way. I'm glad YouTube recognized this, because, Twitter was dealing with some of this for a while, and it still kind of is, where Twitter has a few people on there that, Twitter alone has its issues with bots that are being created and spewing all these other crap, and just are out there instigating and throwing hateful rhetoric. And Twitter, I think, needs to figure out how to clean that out more. And, they're constantly trying to clean out all the bots, but whenever you take down 10 bots, 1,000 more pop up. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But nonetheless, big victory for YouTube, and big victory, I think, for those companies like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Nonetheless, at the end of the day, still knowing that, hey, they have to play a part in regulating the content that's being posted on their platforms, even if, it's millions at a second. The hateful stuff always rises to the top. People will report it. And so it's Facebook part to make sure, these people aren't getting money for this crap they're spewing, and, taking down what needs to be taken down, all the false, grotesque stuff. So we're going to go take a short break, and we come back. We'll be talking about how a hacker most likely has your photograph, and they can use it to their liking, which sounds scary as it is. But yeah, we'll talk about that more right after the break.
Do you work in the world of marketing and advertising? Are you a media buyer or the owner of an agency? Have you been looking for a podcast to help stay on top of all the goings on of those worlds? The GSMC Marketing News Podcast is dedicated to keeping you up to date on all things concerning marketing and advertising. Get the latest marketing news, from what major businesses have planned for the coming year to the newest trends in advertising, from podcasts, digital and streaming, to the old standbys of radio, television, and billboards. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast has you covered, whether you're a marketing agent or a business trying to expand your brand.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about how Prageru lost his lawsuit against YouTube, claiming that they have the right to upload their hateful right-wing conservative videos to YouTube and be able to make money off of it. But the Ninth U.S. Circuit Courts of Appeals, ruled against that. And, Prager's still trying to fight that battle, but this is the second time they've lost it. So, that's that with that. And we're going to continue, keep things moving. And this segment, we're going to be talking about Clearview AI, which is a startup with a database of more than 3 billion photographs from Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, recently getting hacked. Now, the attack allowed hackers to gain access to Clearview AI's client list, but Clearview AI said its servers had not been breached. Most of the clients for Clearview AI are U.S. law enforcement agencies who use its facial recognition software to identify suspects. Its use of images scraped from the internet has obviously raised privacy concerns because, they're utilizing images from the internet. They're grabbing these photos from the internet without your consent, without my consent. So, the fact that they have over 3 billion photographs that had been hacked, 3 billion between Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm on Facebook and Twitter. I also use YouTube. YouTube, obviously, I don't post hardly any content on it. I just have a YouTube page for watching YouTube videos. But nonetheless, my YouTube is linked with my Google. I have an image for my Google account that I'm actually looking at right now. So, I'm very easily within those 3 billion photographs that they have between those three platforms, because I know I have a ton of photos on Facebook. I have a ton of photos on Twitter. So it's a very alarming news. And, especially one, I never heard of Clearview AI before this. And then, it's just, when you hear this thing after the fact and then they try to downplay the incident, but nonetheless, it's still a very, very scary incident that's occurred, this hacking, because now these hackers have, over 3 billion images of people that are all on all three of these platforms. And, Clearview could try to downplay the situation, but, many have come to talk out about the problematic nature of this incident. Tim Mackey, who's a principal analyst with security company Synopsys, said, while their attorney rightly states that data breaches are a fact of life in modern society, the nature of Clearview AI's business makes this type of attack particularly problematic. Facial recognition systems have evolved to the point where they can rapidly identify an individual, but combining facial recognition data with data from other sources like social media enables a face to be placed in a context in which turn can enable detailed user profiling, all without explicit consent from the user whose face is being tracked. So, yeah, that's terrifying. And it's at this point, as terrifying it is, at this point we're screwed. If someone wanted to hack my phone or whatever, they very easily could. And that's just kind of as sad as it is, that's kind of how the way things have been playing out. And there's really not much prevention that can be done at this certain point. I know, for me, I have the iPhone 11 Pro, and I recently got that back in a few months ago. Before the iPhone 11 Pro, I had the iPhone 7 Plus, so I had the finger scanning on it to unlock the phone. And basically, as the iPhone's kind of, as a gradual, security transition between all the iPhones have, developed and increased, going from, putting your passcode in to the finger scan and now to the facial recognition. one, it's been very helpful on like the consumer side because it makes it a lot easier, rather than having to remember 100 different passwords or, just the facial recognition. I just got to hold my phone up to my face and it unlocks. It makes life on the consumer a lot easier, but at the same time, we're giving these tech companies a lot of, access to our lives, essentially, because if all it takes is to my face to unlock my phone, that's being saved somewhere. Like, that information is being saved somewhere. And, I have huge trust in Apple, but even then, like, you're hearing about companies left and right getting hacked, and there's always people out there. There's always someone like that's just working hard to hack someone. I saw something recently where the owner of the Houston Rockets, he got hacked. He got scammed somehow on the black web, and they stole like a ton of money from him. Lori from Shark Tank, she recently got scammed over the phone by this other company, this fake retail company that disguises itself as a company that she had previously worked with, and she ended up sending them $400,000, and it turns out it was a scam. And when she realized it, they had already sent them the $400,000 and money was gone. So it doesn't matter whether it's your typical consumer or even billionaires. People are getting scammed left and right, and it's just going to keep getting worse. And I'm at the point, it almost feels inevitable. Like I was mentioning, with my iPhone, I use the facial recognition to unlock my phone, but I also use the facial recognition for a lot of things, like logging onto my Wells Fargo account to see my bank stuff, whether it's, logging onto social media or different stuff like that. So nonetheless, these hackers can use these photos and in a way, be able to eventually, who knows, get into our bank accounts and all that stuff. So it's very terrifying. But what's even more terrifying is, how these companies like Clearview downplay the situation. And then also, you discover that they have all this data about you after the fact that they get hacked. Like, I had no idea Clearview existed. I didn't know anything about their company. Learned all about this after the fact. And then when you learn that, they're pulling all their images from Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and for one, that they're sending these to police agencies, U.S. agencies, and those agencies are using that to try to find criminals and all. It's very concerning having to learn all of this after the fact. I don't know how you go about this, helping people learn about it at the beginning, but this is all part of the issues Facebook was dealing with, has been dealing with the past couple of years, where they were selling data to all these different companies, and all these companies have so much data and so much stuff on us that you never know who they're being sold to, or all it takes is one hack and this person has all this information about you. So we're screwed. That's simply put. You can try to fight most of these off, and it's unless you're just not going to be on social media or not going to use any technology, someone has data about you, and it's only a matter of time, it almost feels like, until you're just living on the edge because you might be next. But I'll say what, if someone tries to hack me or, get into my stuff, they're going to be highly disappointed because, I ain't got nothing for you. I'm sorry. There's no money, not much there. You might be able to get you something off the dollar menu, but that's about it. But, nonetheless, we're going to go take another quick break, and we come back. We're going to be talking about Airbnb's new attempt at stopping people from throwing parties at their host homes. So we'll be right back in a few minutes.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we are back from break. Before the break, we were talking about Clearview AI, which is a startup with a database of more than 3 billion photographs from Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, recently getting hacked, and what that could mean for me and you. Now, in this segment, we're going to take a look at Airbnb's new attempts at stopping people from throwing parties. Recently, over the past few months, it's become a huge problem. Something that Airbnb's been dealing with a lot of their host homes, people renting it out and then, throwing parties, posting on Facebook, whatever, kind of like an open invite type of thing, and the parties get out of hand. They've actually had a couple incidences where people have died. There's violence broke out in December. Airbnb decided to crack down, on parties after a Halloween shooting at a San Francisco suburb. Airbnb claimed the lives of 5 people. So, it's been getting really out of hand. And so they've just kind of been panicking left and right, trying to figure out what the solution can be to this problem that they had. And now the solution they've landed on for momentarily is they are encouraging hosts to buy smart party prevention devices in an attempt to stop parties that could get out of hand. Now, these party prevention devices look like smoke detector resembling sensors. And these devices are sold by smart home companies Minute, Noise Aware, and Room Monitor. And these devices can detect changes in the noise level, temperature, and even humidity. And they usually cost around $100 or more. So these devices look like smoke detectors, and they basically are keeping on the lookout for noise level, temperature, and even humidity. To me, this just seems like a very weak effort at trying to, prevent parties from occurring. And also it has such a fine line where, that's such a broad range of things it's looking for: noise level, temperature, and even humidity. Because say I'm at a host home and, it's me and 4 or 5 other of my friends that, we're going to a music festival and we are renting this host home for the weekend. If it's 4 or 5 of us in there, we're all dudes, and just in the living room alone, I go over to a friend's house, there's 3 or 4 of us, the temperature immediately rises. It could be 40 degrees outside. It gets hot as crap inside the apartment real quick. If you're, say, you keep an average temperature at 68. And so, say the temperature goes up by a few degrees. Does that alarm go off immediately? And it's just, what happens at that point? Does the device notify the cops? Does it notify the host home? Or who's getting notified by these devices? And also, like, that's just super annoying because you know there's going to be some faultiness with those devices, and that just makes it more of a hassle for the people running the host homes, and I don't think it's such a great solution for the hosts themselves. Now, all the hosts have to do is plug the device into an outlet. Then if anything out of the ordinary is going on, the NARC devices will send them an alert. Okay, so there. So, I'm reading this off of, also, let me give them proper accreditation. This is off of Futurism, and it's by Victor Tandergram. He kind of wrote about this. But yeah, all the hosts have to do is plug them into an outlet. Then if anything is ordinary, the NARC devices will send them an alarm. And it's just such a funny, like, solution. That's one of those, they're just scraping for ideas. They're just trying to find a quick fix solution. But in reality, I heard Bomani talk about this in his podcast, where, one of the biggest problems with Airbnb is trying to take the format of hotels, but in people's homes, in people's apartments, etc. And at the end of the day, people that are usually going to these hotels and stuff are used to, being able to do whatever they want, blah, 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 and then kind of leave and it'll all be good. But it's completely different when you're staying at someone's home, because, you're trying to be more sensible to the fact that you are staying at someone's place, but at the same time, it is that fine line. People are going into it with the mentality of, like, this is a hotel, or like, I'm paying money to stay here, so I feel like I'm obligated to, kind of enjoy the place to the best that I can. So it's a weird fine line, and I think they're going to keep having to play around with it, trying to figure out what exactly, like, how to prevent these different parties from going out of hand. But I don't know. It's going to be tough for Airbnb to, like, keep surviving with the format they're going if they don't figure out some stuff. I know a lot of cities and different areas that are starting to deny Airbnb. I know in Vegas you can't have an Airbnb, which that Vegas makes sense because the hotel industry is so big there that, allowing Airbnbs really hurts the economy for that area. But even, like, I know South Beach has, like, super strict rules as far as Airbnbs and different areas like that. So Airbnb needs to figure out what to do with their party prevention problem, but I don't think these smoke detectors is the solution. There's just too many room for mistake, too many room for false situations to occur. And, the last thing you want is that occurring, because that's, one thing leads to another, or, it just, if anything, it can very well push your consumers away, because it's just like, I don't want to have to deal with this if it's going to be this annoying. And also, Airbnb is starting to get so ridiculous in some of the prices and all that at this point, sometimes it's just like, you might as well stay off at a hotel. So a lot of reevaluating going on with that company right now. And, they're just scraping, trying to find a solution for something, but for this problem they have on hand right now, this ain't it. But we'll see how it keeps playing out, and I'm sure we'll soon figure out or hear situations of these smoke detector party poopers going wrong, and hopefully nothing bad happens out of it, but at the same time, not looking too promising. So we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about screenshots and, how screenshots are ruining privacy online for many people and how we can combat that issue. So listen to these quick words and we'll be right back.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
And we're back. In the last segment, we were talking about Airbnb's new attempts at trying to prevent people from throwing parties at their host homes with their smoke detector looking like sensor devices. Now, in this segment, we're going to be talking about screenshots. Now, this story on Slate caught my attention. It was written by, let me pull it up real quick so I can give proper credit, by Janice Who, and the article reads, "We want a more private internet, but we want to screenshot it too." And she talks about, we don't have great norms to determine when it's appropriate to share an image, or we don't have great norms to determine when it's appropriate to share an image of a conversation with someone else. Now, this story caught my attention because this is something that I know I deal with a lot, because personally I'm on both sides of it, where I'm on all three social media platforms, and so I'm very active on Twitter, and there's a lot of times I'll see stuff on Twitter that I'll screenshot it because I think it's funny, I think it's ironic, I think it's relevant, or, you know, something crazy, and I'll send it to friends. I have like a couple I have one like group message with two other friends that literally in the group message alone, we're just sharing like different screenshots of different things. We're sharing screenshots of like funny memes we see, or like funny things we see about, you know, different people, whether famous or not, or people we just know. So it's like our own like version of a gossip little group message. Yeah, guys do gossip too. Whether we admit it or not, I have no shame. I will gladly admit that. But so it's a very interesting dilemma. And in the article, Jane talks about you know, what goes on the internet stays on the internet. Anything you could say publicly on a blog, in a Facebook post, in a tweet could be shared far beyond the audience you imagine. And that's wreaked havoc on countless occasions. Scores of celebrities have come under fire for their social media indiscretions, and they can, you know, destroy careers for non-celebrities too, like Justine Sacco, who was famously fired after her insensitive tweet went viral. And even going beyond that, companies now are, you know, asking people to add their social media names on resumes. People have moved towards smaller, more intimate online communities where conversations aren't as public. Companies like Facebook and Twitter have started introducing ways for users to interact in smaller, less public communities. And these more private spaces often require a special invitation. You have to get invited by somebody, and there's someone that's moderating the conversation that's going in those group messages. And I like how Jane described it in her article. She talks about how these group messages, or these different private group conversation sections, kind of run with the rules of Fight Club. Members shouldn't talk about the group with non-members, and most definitely should not share things from these group with anyone outside of it. And that's really fascinating, because you're putting a lot of trust in other people, and especially this also depends on, like, one, if you know those people, and especially if you don't, like, you're sharing these different things. Even in these groups, I still feel like it would be very hard for me to be able to trust that what I'm saying in these group messages doesn't get screenshotted or shared by other people. And, I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to risk it. And it's not like I'm going to be saying anything like ridiculous, I doubt, because like for the most part, internet, I'm already a very like close person as far as like, I keep everything to myself. I'm not one to open up about a lot of things with people. And so I really need to know you well to be able to open up with you. And so that's definitely not going to happen on some Facebook forum. And despite how you might try to sell me on how secure it is, no, it's not happening. Now, Jane talks in her article about how, screenshots reflect the itch to document a moment that evoked emotion, amusement, incredulity, anger, or, maybe all three of those. And, scrolling through my phone, I know I personally have screenshots of, different stuff I've seen on Instagram, Twitter. Like I said, I mentioned I have group messages with friends that, we share screenshots all the time where there's something funny and all. And, so I'm part of the problem also. I know, I admit it. I'm part of the problem myself, but, sharing screenshots has become a very normal part of digital behavior because, you see something right there and you have to like, it's one of those instantly you have to share it with someone. You immediately see it and you want to share it with someone. And it's great, but it's also the problem of like, on the other side of it, you don't know for the most part if someone's screenshotting your content and who it's being shared with. And so this is one of the biggest issues we kind of face with the digital climate right now with these social media platforms and even with text messages. But, I think the interesting part about it is kind of looking at it and I think there's a solution for dealing with this issue, and Jane talks about it in her article, and it's something that why I like this social media platform a lot. I use, like I said, I mentioned I'm on Facebook, Twitter, I have a YouTube channel, and another social media platform that I use a lot is Snapchat. Now, Snapchat is one of the few platforms that actually tells you when someone screenshotted your content. And in the article, Jane talks about how, Snapshot screenshot alert shows that the absence of such a feature on other apps isn't a matter of technical difficulty. It's not complicated for apps to build such a feature into their platforms, at least on mobile devices. She talks about how Apple includes code in its software development kit for iOS that developers can use to identify when a screenshot is taken. So simple detection is trivial. Says app developer Kevin Donnelly. And the next steps, reporting the screenshot to the app's server and then sending a notification to the affected user, should be fairly straightforward as well. A screenshot alert might be more difficult to execute on Android apps, says Donnelly, because of how flexible the operating system is, but in lieu of screenshot notification, developers might be able to block screenshots altogether. Similar code could also block screen recording on phone operating systems, another popular way to capture on-screen content. If screenshots generate notifications, screen recording might become a more popular workaround, so it seems wise to anticipate how to control recording as well. There's a solution for this issue. I think more specifically, if Snapchat can do it, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter can be able to do it. And I think some stuff it doesn't necessarily needs to be everything on those platforms and like you need notification for, but I feel like if someone sent me a direct message on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook and someone screenshots it, I should be notified of that. But as far as if it's you're just scrolling through your timeline and you see something and you screenshot it and share it with someone else, I don't think that necessarily needs notification as much. But there are, because you see a lot of times with people, especially celebrities, people are so nowadays trying to expose celebrities, or even celebrities exposing other people, or, vice versa, all over, or just your friend trying to expose you. You send a direct message on Instagram, and now a lot of, one of the more popular things now is, people shaming other people, with the whole sliding in the DMs thing is a big thing right now. Someone, you message someone that you're interested in their DM, you message them in their direct message, they screenshot it, throw it out there on the internet for everyone to see, trying to shame you. And, that's very embarrassing. And that's something that, that's one of the risks right now of being on social media. That's why, I can never, that's not my game, but I would never just direct message, hey, you're pretty or whatever, because, you don't know where it's going to show up, or, who they're going to send that to. So it's a very, very fascinating thing where, something, as simple as a screenshot, who knew it could really be the end all for privacy for us. But it's good to know that there is a solution out there. And, the fact that Snapchat of all companies is leading the way on the honorable side of that, I guess is the word I would use, is really funny to me, in fact. But I think these other companies can act upon that and also really, be able to jump in on the game, because there's some stuff that you should be able to know when someone else is capturing it. And that way I can ask this person, hey, so what were you planning to sell that screenshot to? Just really interesting thing to keep in mind. So we're going to go ahead, take another final break. And when we come back, we're going to finish off by talking about how Apple may ruin movies and TV as we know it. So listen to these few words from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Travel Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Technology News Podcast. In the previous segment, we talked about screenshots and how they're ruining privacy as we know it on social media and just in general text, and ways different companies like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram can go about, following the footsteps of Snapchat and helping users be able to know when someone screenshotted their content. Now, in this final segment, we're going to be talking about how Apple, iPhones, and laptops may ruin movies and TVs as we know it. Now, this story caught my attention because I saw this movie and I really enjoyed it. And finding out the news, basically, rewind. Rian Johnson, he's the director of Knives Out and The Last Jedi. He recently on Vanity Fair did an interview, and he revealed something that at first you hear it, think it's kind of surprising, but when you really think about it, it's not that surprising. He revealed that Apple won't let the bad guys in movies use iPhones. His quote was, "Apple, they let you use iPhones in movies, but," and this is very pivotal if you're ever watching a mystery movie, "bad guys cannot have iPhones on camera." And I heard that situation and I was like, that sounds like a very Apple thing to do. And it's also very funny because, there's just, Apple is one of those companies that does everything possible to keep a clean slated image, which I think is so funny because the fact that if I were to see a movie and saw a bad guy using an iPhone, I wouldn't freak out like, oh my God, iPhone is associated with evil and all that. I'd never want an iPhone. Like, it's going to take a lot more than that for me to stray away from using an iPhone. And also I found the story funny because I watched Knives Out, like I mentioned earlier, and I really enjoyed the movie. And throughout the movie I noticed a couple of the main characters using iPhones, and at the time I never put two and two together, but now knowing what I know, like, I could have easily eliminated 2-3 people from being the suspected killer, which would have kind of taken the fun out of what was a really thrilling murder mystery. So, this revelation by Rian Johnson, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, is one that's not surprising, and I'm sure, the news was eventually going to come out, or if it already hasn't come out, I'm sure someone else has probably mentioned it also, but nonetheless, I wonder to how much extent Apple can actually regulate that, where, can they do a cease and desist, or like someone asks permission to use iPhone, and like, I'm assuming this is all legally bound, because that's so funny. It's such a crazy, like, weird thing to, like, nitpick over. But that would be such a funny case to play out where, someone, I just need a Quentin Tarantino or something. I don't know. Quentin Tarantino's movies are always so old that I don't know the last movie he had an iPhone featured in it or anything of, such a newer technology, but I need like a director that is willing to push the boundaries, and really, that would actually be a great curveball in a murder mystery where everybody has an iPhone, and that way, you just kind of keep everyone on edge and trying to figure out what's going to happen next or who's the murder mystery. But I also, with hearing that, I wonder what other companies have that kind of clause, when people try to use their content in whether it's film or TV, where it's like, nah, you can't, maybe with Tesla, you can't explode a Tesla, or you can't burn a Tesla, or I don't know if Elon Musk seems like one to be super nitpicky about stuff like that, but it's definitely a very fascinating thing to think about. It's just so funny. It's also very petty when you think about it, because like I said, iPhone is the biggest phones out there right now by far, followed up by Samsung, but Apple runs the phone game, and honestly the technology game right now, but they're sticking to keeping that clean image, which I respect it, but I also want someone to push the boundary and really, give them a chase for their money. And, now that Rian Johnson has revealed that, and he's coming out with a Knives 2, I really want him to just really mess with everyone's mind, have iPhones I don't know. I want somebody like Jordan Peele or someone to really mess with this. Jordan Peele would be a great person to really, give Apple problems with this. But knowing Apple also, there's probably a lot of legal issues you got to face with that. So that may also be the reason why someone else doesn't end up pursuing it. But just a fun little story. So now, whenever you're watching a movie, thriller, murder, or whatever, suspense thriller, if you see someone with an iPhone, you're looking at a good guy. And if you see someone with a Samsung, I guess, or a Droid, that's most likely your evil person there. That's really gonna ruin movies for me, man. What's the solution to this? I guess just nobody keep iPhones in your movies, or have the knockoff like Black Mirror and some of the other shows do, or what was it? iCarly used to have the pair. Oh, fun times. But nonetheless, Thank you for listening to the GSMC Technology News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. It's been great chatting with you guys through these different stories. I would like to ask you that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps all of us out, and that way it helps other people get to, learn about the podcast and also get involved also and be able to grow the community more. And also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, that would be awesome. Thank you. Hope you guys have a great night, and we'll catch up with you guys on the next episode of GSMC Technology News Podcast. I'm your host once again, Ben. Have a great night.
You've been listening to the GSMC Business News Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type GSMC into your favorite podcast app to find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news. Please subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's podcast.